I get asked all the time, how the heck do you get your real estate license in Winnipeg, Manitoba? And today I'm going to answer that question for you from start to finish, how to get your license here in Winnipeg. Hi, I'm Jennifer Queen with the Jennifer Queen team in RE/MAX Professionals, and I've been a realtor here in Winnipeg, and now I have to think about it for 2022, so for 11 years. This is going to be my 11th year coming up. So things have changed a little bit since I got my license, but I'm going to talk to you about the current licensing rules because obviously that's what's relevant. You'll see on our channel that we did another video just with a short blurb about how to get your real estate license here, and I get a ton of questions on that video, and I also find that it's one of our more highly watched videos. So obviously the people want to know, and I do get a lot of emails just asking how to get started in real estate. So I'm hoping I can answer all of those questions for you today. This is not going to be a video though that talks about how to start your business in real estate. If that's something though that you would be interested in, just leave me a comment below, because then it really helps me to determine what it is that people are finding of value, and I am here to serve. So when I went online to see what kind of options there are to watch, I noticed that a lot of the videos are United States specific, and while there's some similarities between Canada and the US, I'm going to say that there are also a lot of differences. So if you are an American watching this channel, just know that this is specific to Canada, and not just specific to Canada itself, it's specific to Manitoba. So here in Canada, and I believe it is the same for the United States in specific states, but what you're going to learn is that in Canada, our licensing is done provincially. So if you want a real estate license in Manitoba, you get your license in Manitoba. But if you want to serve in multiple provinces, you're going to need to get your license separately from each one. So you would have an Ontario license, a Manitoba license, an Alberta license. You will have to apply to the appropriate governing body to get your license in each of those, and it might just be as simple as challenging a test if you already have your license, which I know you can do in Manitoba, or it might be going through the whole education process and courses all over again. It really will depend on the province, their registrar, and their rules there, so be sure to call and speak to the governing body to confirm that before you start taking the courses unnecessarily. So in Manitoba, our licenses are issued through the Manitoba Securities Commission. Now the education component of this is all managed by the Manitoba Real Estate Association. So the MSC, or Manitoba Securities Commission, allows the MREA, or some people call it MREA, but Manitoba Real Estate Association, to administer these courses and oversee the education of its salespeople. But before you even start the courses at the Manitoba Real Estate Association, there are some things you should know. The first is that you need to be an individual of good character. And I know that sounds funny, like how are they going to judge your character and just look at you and say, yeah, they look like they have good character, let them in. No, it's not like that at all. What they're going to do is they are going to look at your criminal background history. Do you have a criminal record? If so, they're going to question you on it. If it's violent crimes, I've heard it's probably very unlikely that you're going to get your license. They're also going to look at whether or not you have any claims against you. So say you were sued in small claims court and you lost and you didn't pay up and you have an outstanding debt there. That's going to be considered. Another thing that's going to be considered too are any bankruptcies in your past. Now, I wouldn't say that these things alone will rule you out and make the MSC say no to your registration. But what you're going to want to do is have that conversation up front before you invest all this time and money into taking any course, because it would be horrible to go through this process only to find out that perhaps some bankruptcy in your background wouldn't allow you to become a realtor or something like that. Now, I will say don't be discouraged. I have known realtors that were actually going through an active bankruptcy and were allowed to keep their license, but I think it really is a case-by-case basis, and that you would need to have that conversation up front with them. The MSC is not a huge fan of you having multiple licenses. So say you have a license to sell securities, they aren't going to want you to have a second license, and you're going to need to disclose that up front. I shouldn't say they aren't going to want you to have it. I will leave that up to them to decide, but what you're going to find is that you do have to answer additional questions about whether or not you're holding other securities licenses, and if so, what, and in what capacity, and you're going to have to explain that all the way. So again, another conversation that should be had up front. Another rule is you must be 18 years old, but you don't have to be 18 years old when you start your courses. You just have to be 18 years old by the time you've completed your courses. So it could be something that you start when you're, say, 17 years old and be prepared to finish when you're 18. But just know that obviously if you're under 18 years old, you cannot hold a real estate license in Manitoba. Another rule that you need to know is that after finishing your last course, you need to be prepared to hang your license somewhere within 6 months of finishing your course. So if you were getting your license just to kind of have in the background and know you have it, but maybe not go activate it yet, just know that there is a ticking clock from the second you graduate from that real estate program. You have 6 months or else you're going to lose all of your hard work and money. Another time constraint that you're going to experience too is that from start to finish, so the start of your real estate courses to the end, you have to finish them within 16 months. So if you are planning to do it over a few years, not going to work, you're going to want to spend a little bit more concentrated time on finishing those courses. Also, if you are getting into real estate strictly with the goal of saving money, say because you want to flip properties and just not pay commissions on each sale, you aren't allowed to do speculative investing in Manitoba, which the definition of really is a flip. Speculating that you can buy something for lower and sell it for more once you've done some renovations, pure speculation. So if that is your goal, I would advise against it because that is not the intent of the real estate license here. Don't be discouraged though if you're looking to invest in real estate or if you're buying your residences personally, because yes, you're allowed to buy your own personal residence. You are allowed to buy rental properties in which you're holding them for long periods of time. It's just if you plan to be a flipper, it's not the way to go. And the last point I want to make is you are going to want to have some money set aside. The courses registration fees alone are going to be close to $5,000 to get started. And that's to get started, to get your license. Then after that, you're probably not going to receive your first paycheck here, even if you were to sell a home on the first day of your career. You're still not going to receive that paycheck usually for another 6-8 weeks. Like you should have a minimum of 3 months of living expenses set aside as reserves. And that's still not taking into account any marketing expenses. Some brokerages out there will cover some of your marketing expenses, some won't. So that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're getting started is you need to have a good chunk of cash reserves set aside so that you can survive through the courses and those first few months. So let's get into the courses themselves, which is where you first start in as long as you've satisfactorily answered all those questions. So the first place to start is at the Manitoba Real Estate Association's website. So realestatemanitoba.com, I believe. I will link it in the notes below though, just so you have that easy access. Then you click on education programs and finally real estate salesperson. That's what you are becoming as a real estate salesperson or realtor, as people often call it too. So what you will see in that section are a bunch of options to actually register. You can register in person, by phone, by fax, even by email, and they accept, I think, Visa, MasterCard, debit, cash orders. I think they accept cash in person too. But obviously just talk to one of the people at the front desk there. I always went personally right down to the office and did everything in person. That was 11 years ago though now, so I'm sure that they have better online systems now than they did then. But it's a very easy process. You show up, you fill out your form, which is very brief, and also on the website too that I have linked to, where you can just go on and fill out your form and send it in. When you're doing your registration, you're going to see that there are 4 modules that you need to complete to get your salesperson's license. So module number 1 is kind of just a generic overview of real estate in general. You do a little math, you learn a little bit about taxation and zoning. It's nothing too high level or complex. this initial course, which is a self-study. The first 3 are self-study courses. The cost for this course is around $1,300. It is the most expensive of the 4 modules, so just keep that in mind. And I do believe it's because you get both the Canadian Encyclopedia as well as the Manitoba reference guide. I'm sure they've updated them since I bought mine, but this is my Canadian Encyclopedia, which I still use, in all honesty, keep it. There's stuff you can always look up in them, as well as my Provincial Real Estate manual. Both of these I still use, so make sure you still keep them. It's been 11 years and I still reference them. And funny story, when I took my course, it was actually open book. We could use those, but I know that now it is a closed book exam. So once you have those manuals, make sure you keep them handy. You are going to be using them for all of the modules you attend. Module 2, which is also another independent study course, covers the agency law, condominiums, legislation, perhaps a little bit more dry material, but important material regardless. And that course is at a cost of $995. The third module that you're going to do is also self-study again. And what this one is it's more about FINTRAC, federal requirement reporting regulations, other legislation. I make this sound really boring, but and it can be a bit dry, but it's important stuff to know. FINTRAC is going to be something that you work with day in and day out, and you will learn to hate it, but you will learn that it is important to make sure you fill your forms out properly. So really focus on that portion of the class. The cost for that class is $995. So all 3 of these first modules are independent study, and then at the end you are required to take an exam. I believe that they still test weekly. It used to be on Tuesdays, and you have to get at least a 70% mark in each of these classes before you can move on to the next module. And when I say 70% in each of these classes, it's 70% on that exam. And I believe it is a multiple choice exam, so it's nothing too stressful, but it is something where you want to know your stuff going in there. So when you do take these exams, you go right down to the Manitoba Real Estate Association on Inkster Boulevard. That's where I took all of my classes. They have this huge classroom in the back, and again, they set it up once a week. So if you're not quite ready this week, you could book for next week. It's not too hard to book. It's actually pretty easy. And you go in, you write your exam. I think it's a couple hours, and then you're out of there. And you just usually get your results kind of within the following week, I have found. So you've completed the first 3 modules, which means you are on module 4, which is a 2-day in-person class held in the same classroom at the Manitoba Real Estate Association. I have heard, I did not get the benefit of this class unfortunately, but I have heard this is a really good class in terms of learning about building your business and kind of more realistic day-to-day things that you need to worry about as a realtor. A lot of the coursework earlier is just learning the legislation, and it's a little more dry. Perhaps you're going to learn how to convert square footage to square meters, things that perhaps you wouldn't use as much in your day-to-day life as a realtor. But the module 4, where you're in class, I hear the topics are very relevant, very worthwhile, and that people really enjoy them. So definitely come prepared to contribute in that class and also to learn, obviously. Then after that 2-day module, what you're going to be given are 2 additional assignments that you have to complete online through their MyAbsorb classroom. And I can't forget about the cost. The cost for module 4 is $650. So the grand tally for those 4 modules is $3,495. And that is just, keep in mind, to complete your real estate courses. But unfortunately, this is not the end of your fees. To license in Manitoba, you also have to pay the Manitoba Securities Commission an annual licensing fee. This fee is levied at January 1st. So say you are getting your license in September, it is prorated. You won't pay the full amount. Right now it's about $400 per person. So You will need to pay that fee before you even get your license. And then at that point, you're going to go through all those security checks that I discussed earlier. So you've completed your course. Now what do? So technically you don't have a license until you have found a brokerage to hang your license at. We cannot be salespeople independently. We have to be salespeople licensed under a broker or brokerage house here. And the brokerage is actually who has the permission to sell homes. They just allow their salespeople under their umbrella to sell homes. I feel like I'm not doing a great job of explaining that, but the brokerage is actually who has permission to sell the homes, has that license. You are under their umbrella of salespeople that allows you to have the license to sell on the brokerage's behalf. A good rule of thumb is that while you are getting your license, that you start interviewing at brokerages, like honestly, and even if you don't leave it until closer to the end, between module 3 and module 4 is fine. Sometimes there's a gap in time for module 4 because that course is only offered once a month. Say you finish module 3 just after they had finished a module 4 classroom, you might have to wait as long as a month before they offer the next course. So it's a good time between module 3, module 4, even sooner, to start interviewing at brokerages, because it is important to have somebody lined up to work under when you graduate. Remember, you only have those 6 months to find a broker, but it's not an amount of time you just kind of want to be in limbo. It'd be nice as soon as you get the notice that you completed all 4 modules satisfactorily and you can now go get your license. It's nice to be able to go out and take action right away. I remember when I started, I was still waiting for my letter to come in on my last exam, but I had already interviewed at my brokerage and they were letting me come in and out of the office so I could get set up, but I wasn't allowed to have keys or anything yet. They just let me kind of set up my desk for a couple days and get all sorted until my license came in. And then once that license came in, I was ready to go and I could start trying to sell people houses. Just a few tips too when you're looking for a brokerage, and I think this is really important. I feel like people don't give enough weight to the brokerage they choose. A lot of people might just pick a brokerage based on the lowest fees, which maybe that is the best for your situation, but all fees are structured differently. What kind of agent do you want to be? Do you want to be a realtor that sells hundreds of homes every year, or do you only want to sell 10 homes a year? The answer that you give to that should have a huge weight on the brokerage you choose, because some brokerages keep a higher portion of your commission, but then you pay lower monthly fees, right? There's always some cost-benefit analysis to do there. So you really need to analyze what volume of business and what kind of business you want to be running when you're picking your brokerage. Another thing that's important to do is to just kind of do some snooping, some research on social media. Just see what kind of realtors work at this brokerage. Are they people that you align with, that you think would be good to have as colleagues, or do you not really vibe with them? If so, keep looking. There are plenty of different vibes at all different brokerages here in Manitoba, and there is something for everyone. I really believe that. Another thing you want to look at is the type of training programs offered. Some brokerages don't offer any training. Some brokerages offer training daily and it's structured. So there's varying degrees of training programs out there, and depending on you, like say you're a realtor coming from another province, perhaps you don't need that same level of training. Maybe you just need the odd, bring you up to date kind of with the differences between your former province to your new province. Then perhaps you don't need an office that's so heavily focused on training. But if you are a newbie, you definitely want to focus on an office that offers structured training, and honestly, like daily. Another thing to look into are mentorship programs. So in addition to that training, some brokerages, what they will do is they will actually assign you a mentor. So a more established agent that has been in the business for a while that is willing to take you under the wing. I am a mentor for my office, and our period is at 3 months, although most of my former mentees I still hang out with. So, and they still come to me with questions, which is awesome. But I would say that that mentorship for me when I started was incredibly valuable. And I love my mentor to this day, Zoltan. He did so much for my business, and he's just been such a huge support, and I can still call him with questions. Another factor you want to consider is the actual physical space. Is the office you are signing up for, do they have physical space for you? I think it's really important, and I found this too, that when you're a newcomer to the industry, that it's good to be in an office surrounded by people working towards a common goal. I formed relationships with other more senior realtors there too when I started, and I would just offer to take them out for lunch and then get to know them, and they would get to know me. And a lot of my initial business actually came from referrals that they would send me because they were confident that I was at least hopefully a decent human being that could handle the lead and wouldn't tarnish their name. And as a result, those relationships also furthered my business too. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't just the leads that they would send. It was the overall value and advice. You can cut off so much of the learning curve if you just surround yourself with the right people with the similar goals to you that are doing everything they can to build a good business. You can cut off years and years of learning if you just take in all of this advice. Okay, so you've selected your brokerage, which means you can now sign with your brokerage, and your MSC registration papers, that's that $400 registration fee. Your broker will sign this on the employer line, which means you now officially have your real estate license and you can sell homes under your brokerage in Manitoba. Now, I haven't really given any tidbits here on how to actually build and grow your business, and that's honestly probably the hardest part, harder than actually getting your license itself. So if that's something you would find value in, let me know. Again, I am always happy to serve. I just don't want to be giving out information that isn't of value to people. I'm trying to make videos that people can use and help them along the way in their real estate journey, whether it be buying, selling, or getting your license. And as always, feel free to call or text me, 204-797-7945. I'm always happy to help. Again, I'm Jennifer Queen with the Jennifer Queen team and RE/MAX Professionals here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like button below. It really does help us in determining just what kind of videos to come up with. And if you want more information like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button below too. Thanks and have a good one. Bye.